Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of the Peach Punter Podcast with Jason Pye, joined by Scott Turner and Buzz Brockway. Guys,
yo, how's it going, dudes?
It's going. So before we start off, so every week we ask you to make sure you download, like, subscribe, share the Peach Punter Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever else, YouTube, and Facebook, wherever you can find it. This week we have something new. So this past weekend, we had, well, I guess last podcast we kicked around the idea of starting a Patreon. And for those of you who are not familiar with Patreon, it's basically a way for you to support the content that people give, whether it's music, podcasts, whatever, influencers, whatever the case may be, and just by sending them a monetary donation. So if you go to patreon.com/peachpundit, we have a Patreon set up that has 4 different tiers. The first one is a basic tier, $5 a month for a subscriber. We have a $10 a month for a supporter, $50 a month for an advocate, and I forget what the fourth one was called. I'm pulling it up. Oh, partner for $100 a month, and each one comes with different levels of like benefits. So $5 gets you a shout out at the end of the podcast, while the advocate $50 a month gets you that plus access to the live stream in the chat and a face t-shirt of Buzz, Scott, or Jason, you pick. After 2 months of membership on the tier level. So and basically we don't make any money from the podcast. It's basically just our free time. We're the three of us have been friends, I think, years at this point. I've known Scott for close to 20 years, Buzz, I think, for about as long. So, and this is something we just do because we enjoy talking to each other. We enjoy politics. We enjoy, pissing each other off or teasing each other.
It's so easy.
It is so easy. This is just a way for you to pitch in if you're enjoying it, and we'll take the money, any proceeds we get, and we will use them to improve the podcast. Hopefully, getting more professional podcast setup, better microphones, soundboards, so on and so forth.
If you're one of those people who've stopped me in the hall and said, "I love the podcast, but your audio is horrible," this is your opportunity to help solve a problem that you have recognized, and for the low cost of $5 a month. And then we thank you for it. This is not going to our pocket. This is going to make this a better program.
And it's not just, you could do 10, you could do 50, you could do 100. We don't really care. So you don't, just to say, you don't have to be cheap. You could do more than $5 a month if you want to.
Right. Right. And if you do 100, we're going to let you actually pick a topic every month, right?
Every week.
Wow. Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
You said every month, and I changed that to every week.
That's incredible. So that's
a topic. Huh?
That's a real partnership right there.
Yeah.
That's value.
Yeah, subject to your approval, but it's your responsibility to email it to me to make sure it's, or Scott, technically.
If you're a member, listen, if you're a campaign manager for a guy and you get to pick what we're going to talk about, I'm just saying that's a cheap expense.
No, you pick the topic, but they don't necessarily pick what we say. So it's a two-edged sword there, right?
Well,
Candace Taylor says, "I'll give you guys $100 and you have to praise me every month."
No.
Taylor Green. No.
No, I will say how humorous I find Candace Taylor every week. If that's what if she wants us to talk about Candace Taylor, I'll talk about Candace Taylor.
Yeah,
I will talk about some Candace Taylor.
So it's not necessarily you can buy time on this podcast. You don't necessarily buy our love, so that's a separate.
That's going to cost you a lot more.
Yes, no, we haven't unveiled the $1,000 per month subscription yet, but we will be doing so shortly after this podcast. That way you can buy our love, and that's the only benefit available in that particular tier. Not that you want, not that you want our love. I'm sure these guys who are both married would say that you may not necessarily want their love if you ask their wives. So
I have to check with our wives on that, whether it's worth it.
Spin me like a record, round, round, baby, round, round.
So I
want your love.
I will give $5 a month to never hear you sing again.
Sign them up. We got our first subscriber right there.
So I bumped into some friends last night up in DC, and one of them was Corey Deangelis, who he and I talked about and Corey, for those of you who don't know, works at the Reason Foundation. He does a couple other things. I think he's a fellow at Cato and does a couple other things, and he works exclusively on education policy, specifically school choice. and we talked about the status of the school choice legislation in the Georgia General Assembly. As I understand it, things have not gone that well. So, Buzz, why don't you bring us up to speed on where we are?
Yeah. So, I mean, you remember a few weeks ago we talked about the kerfluffle that took place in the House that caused a bunch of Republicans who were previously supporting school choice to decide they were no longer going to support school choice, which prompted Speaker Ralston to say these bills are dead and take the unprecedented step of actually going to the media and announcing that it was dead and why it was dead. We talked about all that. Into the breach stepped Senator Butch Miller, who is running for lieutenant governor, as you all know. And I attended an event that he held last 2 weeks ago here about a mile from my house. And he announced that he was going to, was introducing Senate Bill 601, which was pretty much a word-for-word copy of Wes Cantrell's House Bill 999, which was introduced but did not make it out of the House Education Committee. Burt Jones, by the way, 2 nights later had an event also in Decatur, Georgia, not far from my house. I was intended to go, but I couldn't make it back. So I'm not taking sides here. But this week, on crossover day, Senate Bill 601 by Butch Miller, which would create the Promise Scholarship Bill, made it to the Senate floor, and it failed. 20 yes votes, 29 no votes. There were 5 Republicans maybe 6, who walked on the bill. And I wasn't present there, but I'm told by people who were that most of these senators were sitting in the hall. So that's a walk. It's not like that's not, they were otherwise occupied. They were in the hall waiting for the debate to end. One of those was a co-sponsor of the bill, Jeff Mullis, who was a co-sponsor of the bill, and who during the debate asked a friendly question of Butch Miller and said, "I support your bill," and then he walked. So that's all very curious. There were 8 Republican senators who voted against it. Lindsey Tippins was one of those. Of course, he's a longtime opponent of school choice, so there's no surprise there. Tyler Harper, who was running for ag commissioner, voted no. I don't know. I have to remember he's never voted. He's never been a real friend of school choice. So I'm that his no vote was not necessarily a surprise, but several others really were a surprise. And Mike Dugan, the Senate Majority Leader, voted no. Jason Antivitardi, a good friend of mine, voted no and has not responded to my texts asking him what the heck was going on. So it's all very curious. And in talking with folks who were there and talking with folks who have observed this and just my own observations, it seems that once again the Senate has internal politics inside the Senate, specifically the Butch Miller versus Burt Jones race.
Well, that doesn't make sense to me. That doesn't make sense to me, Buzz. And the only reason why is because Burt voted yes. Burt voted for Butch Miller's school choice bill. So
he did.
So the internal politics, I mean, if it was truly a Jones versus Miller conflict, then why would Burt vote for the bill?
Well, sure, to provide himself some political cover, to say I'm for school choice, which is what he's been saying, which he came to the rally. Butch and Burt both came to a school choice rally that took place a few weeks ago where Corey Deangelis was present, and both gave stirring speeches about how they're for school choice. So, I think I don't know what if any deals were cut. I'm not making any accusations like that. I'm just saying what folks at the Capitol were saying, which is that Burt Jones was working the floor pretty hard, and suddenly a bunch of people some of whom are supporting Burt Jones, voted against the bill.
There are stories out of the 1990s when they voted on term limits in Congress. I want to say the House, for example, or maybe it was the Senate. I don't remember. But one of the chambers where there was a member who had to vote yes, but coaxed other members into voting no, so it would kill the bill. I think in this case, constitutional amendment kill the constitutional amendment. So this person would be protected by voting yes, but would guarantee that the amendment would go down.
Look, I'm going out on a limb here because I'm reacting. There's nobody no senator has come to me and said, yeah, I flipped my vote because Burt Jones asked me to. I'm just telling you what the scuttlebutt is under the Capitol and looking at how it's going. I mean, we talked about this a few weeks ago when the bills died in the House. The politics under the dome is suddenly inexplicably turned against school choice. The politics outside the dome is just as pro-school choice as it always was. And it's more so now than it was before the pandemic for all the reasons we've talked about repeatedly on this podcast. Parents are getting organized in this state. When I attended that Butch Miller rally just a few weeks ago, there were a number of Gwinnett parents there who were telling me, we're getting organized. We're not going to put up with crap anymore from our public schools. We want things to change, and we're not going to rest until they change. Are they going to be organized enough to make an impact on the May 24th Republican primaries? I don't know. A couple of these people who took walks and voted no have opposition.
Well, somebody who doesn't have opposition and has waffled on this issue over the years has been very against school choice in any way, shape, or form, is Senator Brandon Beach of the 21st, which is now a majority Cherokee County district. He of Fulton County. He had indicated to you guys at a certain point that he had flipped his mind on this, that he was a pro-school choice guy, right?
That I don't know. I bumped into him at the Capitol the other day, had a little spirited conversation with him where he told me that we need to give up on the idea of school choice and we need to be doing things like passing the not the Patients' Bill of Rights, the Brian Kemp's Parents' Bill of Rights. And I said, I'm all for the Parents' Bill of Rights. It does nothing, as much as I like, it does nothing to address the academic situation that many students across the state of Georgia find themselves in. So, I don't think, a couple of years ago when 4 years ago, Greg Dolezal had an ESA bill, and Brandon Beach went to the extraordinary lengths of getting the Attorney General to issue a letter saying that Brandon Beach was conflicted out of having to vote for this thing, and yet here he votes no. So that's I guess the conflict went away or whatever. But yeah, it's all very curious and leads me to believe that those who are speculating that the Miller versus Burt Jones race played a factor in this. I also think there was some fear that the speaker would crunch their bills that are sitting in the Senate. I think that played a factor too. But Republicans long campaigned. It's in the Republican Party platform. Republicans have long campaigned, and including several of these people who voted no and saying, I'm for school choice. Eventually, you're going to have to prove it by voting for school choice legislation.
Well, some of these guys aren't coming back, like Mullis is not coming back. But here's your list of, we're not going to focus on those who voted no, because the majority of Republicans voted yes. People who actually believe in the Republican platform when it comes to education and empowering parents and funding students, not systems. That part of the platform, here are your champions. John Alberts from the 56th, Lee Anderson from the 24th, Matt Brass from the 28th, Max Burns from the 23rd, Bill Calzert of the 46th, Clint Dixon of the 45th, Greg Dolezal of the 27th, Steve Gooch of the 51st, Marty Harbin of the 16th, Bo Hatchett of the 50th, Burt Jones, the 25th, John Kennedy of the 18th, Kay Kirkpatrick of the 32nd, Sheila McNeil of the 3rd, Butch Miller of the 49th, Chuck Payne of the 54th, Randy Robertson of the 29th, Brian Strickland of the 17th, Bruce Thompson of the 14th, and Ben Watson of the 1st. There are your school choice champions. If that was one of your state senators, let them know we appreciate them.
And one last thing I'll say on this, these folks who voted no have an opportunity. There's still another chance to vote on a school choice piece of legislation, House Bill 517 by John Carson. The Senate on Friday disagreed with the House position on that bill. It's caught up in the agree-disagree. They disagreed with the position. and the bill will hopefully go to conference, and they'll have another chance, hopefully, to vote for a good school choice piece of legislation, unless there's a couple senators who have some objections to it, to that bill as it currently stands, and hopefully they'll get those things ironed out. Because listen, Brian Kemp campaigned on what's contained in House Bill 517, which is in doubling the cap of the Georgia's tax credit scholarship program. Brian Kemp campaigned on that, and it's if he wants to keep his campaign promise, he needs to get involved too and make sure this bill gets passed. So that's the school choice update, and that's all I had to say about that.
Thank you, Forrest. So Scott, this week you had written a blog post over at Peach Pundit in which you mentioned that a crossover day bill looked to dismantle medical marijuana in Georgia, medical cannabis. This one bothers me, and let me be clear here: I'm a horrible libertarian because I do not partake in the chronic. That is not something that has ever really appealed to me. That said, I do have plenty of friends who use medical cannabis to treat as a treatment for issues that they have, including pain, it's also not just friends, family members as well. So this one was particularly concerning to me, given what the bill proposed to do. Can you give us a status update of that bill?
So yeah, this bill did pass the House with only 5 no votes, and the 5 that voted no were mostly Georgia Freedom Caucus members, with the exception of, I think, maybe Dominic LaRicchia, who just votes against anything that has to do with mind altering anything, any beer bill, it's always a no. But the bill essentially resets the clock. It to give you a reason why this bill came into existence. A couple of years ago, we passed a bill that would allow for in-state cultivation of medical cannabis. It was the first time Georgia had ever entertained the idea, and we decided we're going to go for it. But in order to gain approval of the executive branch, we had to limit the number of licenses that would be given. So a good libertarian would say, you should let the free market do this, right? Well, conservatives still, a good number of conservatives are still concerned with the impact of marijuana culturally and are a little afraid of the wacky weed. I remember a debate several years ago when we were just trying to bring legalize oil. One of the chairmen actually went to the well and said, "This will make you jump out of a window, and, try to commit suicide." And all, it was just crazy. The reefer madness is still a real thing amongst many of the baby boomer legislators who are in the Republican Party in both chambers. So in order to get anything out, we had to limit the number. And so I'm of the mind, being a bit of a pragmatist, I'm of the mind, something's better than nothing. We'll go with the 6. Well, it took them forever to actually get the commission set up and going, and then issue the RFP for these companies. Apparently there were 16 total companies, that are 16 plus 6. Actually, there were 22 companies that applied for a license, and it was sold to a lot of us as these are going to be Georgia-based companies that get these licenses. Well, lo and behold, all 6 of them came from out of state. And so none of the companies that were selected for the 6 licenses were Georgia-based companies. So the other 16 sued to stop it, and now it's been tied up in court. And so one of the activists who's involved in this has told me it's going to be 22 licenses or it's going to be 0, which is, I think, foolish. I think 6 is better than 0, but he really wants a license and he feels like he's been screwed. And so he's part of the lawsuit, or it would be part of the lawsuit, to try to prevent the other 6 from actually in doing any type of production or in-state cultivation. So because there's been all this infighting, the Speaker of the House pulls his leadership team together and he says, let's do this. And he resets the clock. He dissolves the RFP. He basically tells the commission, you're no longer to use the old RFP. Those 6 licenses no longer exist per law. So there's nothing to sue on. Your lawsuit becomes moot, and we're going to start over. And so the clock is reset, essentially. If this bill does become law, it resets. I think it's a strong arm tactic to get these people to negotiate, because they keep the 6 don't want the extra 16. They don't want the competition. And the 16 who are left are like, hey, we deserve something. We're Georgia based. We're able to do this. We should get licenses too. So if you want to know more about the specifics of the bill, we did do a write-up. We were provided some talking points on what the bill does, and it's available at peachpundit.com. But our in-state cultivation program continues to flounder and has lost its way. We don't know when we'll actually have legal. One of the really weird provisions of this bill instructs the commission to break federal law and procure oil from legal states. The problem with that is you're breaking federal law, number one. Number two, the whole reason why we do in-state cultivation is get around the interstate commerce clause.
Right.
So that we would have an argument that states' rights do actually matter here. And you're putting that other state's license in jeopardy with that state, because if you go to any other state, they're not allowed to sell to out-of-state entities. They're only allowed to sell, like in Colorado, you can only sell to somebody who's going to use the stuff in Colorado. Again, so you can get around the interstate commerce clause. So it actually encourages this commission, the state entity, to actively break federal law, which I think is fascinating. I don't know of any other provision in any other bill I've ever seen that does that.
The good news is, according to the the United States Sentencing Commission, which put out its source book of fiscal 2021 data yesterday, there were fewer than 1,000 marijuana trafficking defendants in federal court last year, which is like the first time that has ever happened. That said, still not a good idea to ask people, or basically to instruct people to break federal law.
Yeah.
Pointing out, I mean, my whole thing on this is just like, I realize Georgia is still a very, at least the Republicans in Georgia are still very culturally conservative. But it's a matter of time before weed is legal, and at least if not federally, definitely in Georgia. And whether I don't know, I think the whole debate's silly. Just go ahead and bite the bullet and legalize marijuana. That's just my 2 cents as the libertarian who doesn't smoke weed. So yeah, I don't know. Anyway, every year, I hear about horse racing in Georgia, without fail, for like the last 10 years.
Easily the last 10 years.
Easily the last 10 years. And every year this fails.
Yeah.
And guess what, folks? 2022 is no different. We're standing on the edge of the apocalypse right now. World War III is staring us in the face. And we still can't have horse racing in Georgia. What happened? What happened here, guys?
Well, I think so. Mullis brought the constitutional amendment, and I think a little bit of it was a little slap back at him, a little clapping back at the Senate Rules Chairman, who's been clapping at a lot of people this week. Mullis has been having a little bit too much fun in his last days. In his last meeting of the Rules Chairman before crossover, he called one Senator Foghorn Leghorn. He told a Democrat freshman to get with him later so he could teach her how to do the sneaky bastard methods of legislating. He at one point was wearing a riding helmet, an equestrian riding helmet. So the dude is like off the chain. He is unleashed and unhinged, and he's been clapping at a lot of people, and I think they're clapping back at him a little bit. He went to the well on this. He presented it. He got very upset. At one point, you could see he smiled through it, but it was like one of those, oh, I'm going to get you type of smiles. So I think that's part of it. Another part of it is that Brandon Beach has been a big proponent of this, and he's lost a lot of credibility. And I think it was an opportunity for Republicans to put him up and then slap him down too. I think that's part of it. I don't know why else it would actually get a vote on the floor. There is absolutely no desire for this in the House, and there hasn't been since Terry Geisinger passed away. That's the last time the House really had any type of advocate for horse racing. Since then, there's been nobody who said, what we ought to do? We ought to be more like Kentucky. That's what we ought to do here. Nobody here.
Well, I think also, like is horse racing a growth industry? I mean, this was being sold as, this is going to create this massive industry in the state of Georgia. All these people are going to come here to start up horse racing enterprises and all of the ancillary businesses. I mean, is there any state other than Kentucky? Is there any state where this is a thriving industry? I mean,
in Maryland, they have horse racing, right? But all the horse racing tracks are double as casinos.
Yeah.
And so when you go to a horse track in Maryland, and I've been to one to play some blackjack, not even to go watch horse racing. I just went to play blackjack. And that's what they turn into. There are people who do believe that this is a backdoor method to getting casino gambling in Georgia.
Yeah, and that could be, and you get your foot in the door and let people and show people, oh, the state didn't implode, so we can have casinos too. But I'm trying to sell this as, this is going to be jobs for Georgians. It's a weak argument because it's just not a. I don't know, unless somebody can tell me I'm wrong. This is not a growth industry that you want to attract to your state.
Yeah, I mean, people make the arguments about sports stadiums and things like that. And there's a great book called Field of Schemes that talks about the economic development that never really comes when it comes to sports stadiums. I don't know what it would be for horse racing and whether that is actually true or not. Yeah. But I gotta imagine it's sort of the same way. I mean, remember they what was it they built next to the old Turner Field? It was like a sportsplex or something like that, where they're like, this is gonna be a thriving business.
Fan something or other.
Fanplex.
Fanplex, yeah, and they were like, this is going to be a great, family-oriented fun. That place is a parking lot within 5 years.
Yeah,
and maybe not 5, but you see what I'm saying. I mean, it's you got to think of it from that perspective. I do think gambling would be a profitable business in Georgia, would bring a lot of jobs, and
I don't think so. I think it'd be a net zero. Because
there's studies that show it's a net negative, but anyway,
I haven't seen the studies. I mean, I'm shooting from the hip here, but that would just be my guess. But
for every job that you create in gambling, you take one from somewhere else, and that's because it competes with literally everything from concert venues to restaurants. You're just taking a job and you're consolidating that into somewhere else, and that's what the studies show, and that's why I was opposed to it. Plus, every single time they bring something like this with gambling, it is built-in corruption. It is who can pad pockets the fastest and highest. That's the person that's going to win, and that's the person that's going to get one of the few licenses to do this. And it's a mess. It's built-in corruption, and in the legislation you can actually read it and say, well, this is where people are going to get paid off. Right here, this is it.
Yeah.
Well, so I think they, but I think to your point, I think that Scott, they were realizing casinos aren't going to pass. Let's try horse racing because everybody loves horses, and they're beautiful and they're wonderful animals, et cetera, et cetera. But it's just a weak argument because it's not a growing industry that states are fighting over to try to get to come to their state.
So moving on. So we have Trump has added another candidate to his slate here in Georgia. He's endorsed Patrick Witt.
Buzz called it.
He's endorsed Patrick Witt for insurance commissioner, which is he's running against John King, who was appointed after the I can't remember the guy's name who won the race.
Jim Beck.
Jim Beck's right. Faced was convicted of federal charges. So this one, I don't, because I'm reading the story right now. Roll Call did a story on this, posted it a couple days ago. And they're framing it as Trump's feud with Georgia governor reaches into campaign for insurance commissioner.
It's not wrong. That's not wrong.
No, that's it going on.
Fact check. True.
Yeah, maybe that's true, but Kemp's actually going to win his race, but and Trump's going to lose this little feud. But at least in the short term, maybe Trump will stay true to his word and actually truly care or truly prefer to see Stacey Abrams get elected governor. I don't know. So tell me what I need to know here, guys. This Patrick Witt, he was in the administration, was a minor, looks like a fairly minor official.
It's very clear to me at this point that a lot of backroom deals, a lot of swampy like backroom deals have been cut to get people out of certain races and move them around. And the kingpin in all this is down the king of Mar-a-Lago, who is bringing these people in, and he's telling them, if you do this, I'll trade you. If you get out of this race, and let Vernon and endorse Vernon Jones, who's my guy, this Democrat from DeKalb County who's running in the 10th. That's the guy I want. So you need to get out of this race, and I'll endorse you to run against John King, because John King was appointed by Brian Kemp, and everything Brian Kemp touches needs to be destroyed. So because of that, this is what I want you to do. And that's what exactly Patrick Witt said. Sir, yes, sir. Reporting for duty, sir. I'm a good soldier, sir. And he marched out and qualified for insurance commissioner. There is no other reason. I don't know Patrick Witt. I met him for the first time this week last week at qualifying. I met him. I was like, oh, weren't you running for Congress? He's like, yeah, I'm running for insurance commissioner now. And very tall, very young man, seemed like he was well-spoken. What type of experience does he have in running as the insurance commissioner? I don't know. But what I do know is that he cut a backroom deal to get in the race. And that's what that was. And we see it happened a couple of times now where there have been backroom deals cut. The reason why David Perdue is running, because he cut a backroom deal and whenever he says I'm the political outsider, it's full of crap. He's the ultimate political insider. He's cutting backroom deals in spite of what's best for the state. And so
the reason Vernon is running in that category. Yeah, I mean, the reason Vernon runs in the 10th is that a deal was cut. Yeah, I mean, I don't know Patrick Witt. I had a person that I did some work with in my day job from in Washington, D.C., call me and asked me to meet with Patrick, and I offered to meet with him, and it just didn't work out. And honestly, I was upfront with him and her, the lady from Washington who called me and just said, look, Tim Barr is a personal friend. I don't live in the 10th, but Tim Barr is a personal friend, and I'll be, if I live there, I'll be voting for him. But it's I did it, so it didn't work out to meet with him, but she spoke very highly of him, and said he was a solid conservative that people would like. And we'll see. I don't it's kind of interesting to see people switch races after campaigning so hard for one thing, and sometimes it works. Austin Scott, for example, was running very vigorously for governor a few years back, and then pivoted and won his congressional race. But I just
Austin
don't know.
Scott was a Republican trying to be a Republican nominee from a Republican part of the state.
Right.
Vernon Jones is a Democrat trying to run as a Republican in the Republican part of the state.
Sure. And Patrick Witt will have to make the case. I just don't know that saying we're kind of seeing that playing out in the governor's race, that just running around and reminding everybody you're endorsed by Trump is not enough to win. And Witt's going to have to stand on his own. Trump's not going to be able to drag him across the line here.
Yeah,
I totally agree. You've got to campaign and do the work.
Yeah,
that's if you want anybody to vote for you, you've got to do the work.
Well, speaking of campaigning and doing the work, Stacey Abrams is not campaigning currently, at least according to
sometimes.
Yeah, I guess when you can coast to your nomination, it makes life a little bit easier. This whole thing makes me wonder if they're finally going to get rid of the Georgia film tax credit, but if they probably won't. But Stacey Abrams appeared as the president of United Earth,
president of Earth,
in the season 4 finale of Star Trek Discovery, and I would prefer to see Richard Nixon's head like in Futurama. But alas, I have been let down by Hollywood once again.
But did she get to keep the outfit? That's of interest to me.
Well, if she wins, she's going to wear it on Inauguration Day. That's my hope. That's my hope.
She looked great. I mean, she looked like she was president of Earth. I mean, she looked great. I mean, got to give her credit. Give the Hollywood makeup folks a credit. I mean, not that she's a bad looking lady anytime else, but they made her look fantastic, futuristic, presidentially. They really did. Problem is, I mean, if I'm running for governor of Georgia and I've let it be known that I'd love to be president of the United States one day, do I want to go on Star Trek as president of Earth? I just don't know that really works all that well. It seems like like your true ambition is really coming through. You can't even win a race for governor against Brian Kemp in 2016 or 18, and now you are wanting to present yourself as president of the earth. That is amazing.
A united earth. So
yes.
she's brought the all earth together, overcome all of the voter suppression and become president of earth.
That's right, my fellow Earthicans. Earth President Stacey Abrams has brought us all together.
Oh my gosh, it really brought me together and a lot of other people to cancel my Paramount subscription. That's what it really did. I'm no longer going to be their customer. I just, good Lord. Star Trek Discovery is problematic for a lot of things, mainly because it's such a departure from the hopeful message of Star Trek. Like the Star Trek that we grew up on, obviously, you know, if the original series where I grew up in Central Florida, it was on every day at 4:00 on Channel 6 every single day. You get home from school, you do your homework, you turn on channel 6 at 4:00, and then your parents came home and you just finished an old school. And then every Saturday night at 9:00 was Star Trek: The Next Generation, right? I mean, those are my teenage years. I really love Star Trek. I really do. Star Trek Discovery is problematic for a whole host of reasons, but primarily because it doesn't feel like that hopeful future that existed in The Next Generation or the original series. Go ahead, Jason.
Can you speak Klingon?
No. No. I figured that my English ability to swear is just as good as anybody's in Klingon. So I don't speak Klingon, but you'll definitely know what I'm thinking most of the time. All that to say, you know, woke Trek, as a lot of people have called it, is now cemented itself as the liberal bastion, glorifying Stacey Abrams as not only a political candidate, but has elevated her, at least fictitiously, to the position of president of Earth. And, you know, which is another thing. If I just want to say, this week, Stacey Abrams officially kicked off her campaign. She's the only person in the Democratic race to be governor, so she is the nominee. She went to Cuthbert, Georgia, at a closed hospital, complaining about how we haven't expanded Medicaid, while ignoring a lot of facts about why we haven't expanded Medicaid, but using people's pulling on their heartstrings and emotional arguments to try to make her case for why she should be governor and no one else. And she tried to say that Brian Kemp hasn't done the work and that she's done the work and now she wants the job. And I'm sorry, running around the country fomenting division is not doing the work. Appearing on the woke Trek is not doing the work. So sorry, you haven't been doing the work. Brian Kemp has been doing the work. He's been handed one of the most difficult things you could possibly happen to you while you're governor in a pandemic. And so he had to balance public health and economic health. And he had to keep people working and employed without shutting them down, which is what you would have done. You would have completely destroyed our economy here in Georgia. He opened us faster than any other state. He didn't completely shut us down ever. And then those things that were shut down got opened faster than anywhere else. And our economy has responded. He's been doing the work, ma'am. He's been doing the work. You haven't. You've been running around the country raising money, and that's what you've been doing.
And it's a sense of entitlement. You know, it fits in with her for years saying that, you know, she's the true winner of the 2018 election. And now, you know,
the original big lie.
Now she's, you know, nobody deserves this. This seat belongs to the people of Georgia, and they will decide who it is. It's not going to be based on entitlement. Nobody's entitled to the job of governor. They gotta, if she thinks she's done the work already, she's got to keep doing the work until November if she wants to be governor.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, moving along. So this morning, I think it was in one of the newsletters I get every morning. It wasn't Playbook, it was another one. Had this ad that was from Gary Black's campaign, just eviscerating Herschel Walker.
Yeah.
If you folks haven't seen it, we'll link it in the post on peachpunnet.com for the podcast. You'll have to, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you'll have to go to peachpunnet.com to get a direct link to it, or you just Google it because it's been everywhere today.
Yes.
In fact, I texted a couple friends of mine and said, "Well, guys, the race for the race for Georgia Senate is going great for Republicans."
Yeah.
and that ad was
brutal.
Brutal. It's a 2-minute long. It's a 2-minute long online thing only. It's not going to be aired on TV, I'm sure, unless it's a condensed version. But it's really bad for Herschel Walker, and you got to wonder. I mean, this stuff is going to come out sooner rather than later. It's already started coming out.
Yeah.
But the failed businesses, the allegations of domestic abuse, that sort of stuff is. I mean, and folks, I'm tamping it down. That's
the ad. Can I describe the ad?
Yeah, go ahead.
The ad starts. It's like, so you're thinking about voting for
the ad UGA. The ad starts with an advisory, basically saying
explicit content
warning.
Viewer discretion is advised. Right. Imagine so you're thinking about voting for Herschel Walker? Really? Imagine it's the day after the Republican primary and he's the nominee. He's the UGA football star nominee. And the Democrats start talking about how he beat his wife.
Yeah.
And how he held a razor to her throat. And he, all of this, like, oh my gosh, it's like makes the hair on your neck stand up, kind of bad negative attack. And it ends with if you're Raphael Warnock, it's two liberal pundits talking back and forth. If you're Raphael Warnock, you want to go up against Herschel Walker because you're going to own him. If you go against somebody else like Gary Black, it's harder to make the case for you to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically 2 minutes of all of Herschel's domestic violence issues that have happened to him in the past. And it's brutal. I mean, it is bad.
Yeah.
This is another reason though, why Herschel needs debate, right?
Yeah.
He needs not run away from it.
Right.
He's got to run through it.
He's got to explain this stuff to the voters. He's got to.
That was a different person. It was so many years ago. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things he needs to be doing to tamp it down.
Where people want to know, where's the pivot point where you turned away from this behavior and got your life cleaned up and have demonstrated that?
Was it 2 years ago? Was it 5 years ago? Was it 10? Was it 20 years ago?
Yeah.
That matters to people.
Sure.
If that happened to you when you're 18 years old, that's different than if it happened to you at 50 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you've got to answer for it. And I think if you own it, you come out and you say, these things happened. I'm not proud of it. I'm ashamed of it. I've tried to make amends. These are the ways I've tried to pay restitution, if you will. These are the things I've done.
Even turn it into the debate on mental health that we're having right now in the country.
Yes.
I mean, because that's an important debate that we've discussed here a lot. And
right.
You could pivot and go back right to that. It's like, yes, look, it happened. I'm not proud of it. I regret it. I'm sorry. And
right.
But like I've gone through things in my life that have made me realize how important mental health is in this country. And when I'm elected to the United States Senate, I'm gonna one of the first pieces of legislation I'm gonna to introduce is another grant program for mental health to promote mental health programs in the states.
Right.
I mean, you could easily parlay this into something that good campaign fodder and turn it around on its head.
Right.
I mean, like maybe not easily, but you could turn a negative into something positive.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of love in Georgia for Herschel Walker for obvious reasons and lots of reasons. He's just been a beloved figure in this state for a long time, but translating that into enthusiastic support for the U.S. Senate is another thing. And these things, yes, he's got a big lead in every poll, and this may or may not signal the beginning of a turning point. But we're coming down the stretch, and he's got we got 70 something days until the primary election. He's got to start answering these questions and addressing this stuff it's brutal, but it's better as Republicans to air this stuff now than have Democratic operative groups pounding him over the head as people are heading to the polls in November.
Right. Yeah. I mean, have an opportunity to change your vote now.
Yeah.
Because if we nominate him, they're going to use it anyway, right? We're going to hear this message between now and November if he's the nominee. Yep. So we're all going to have to get used to it. The other thing that happened with Herschel, though, is this week he was quoted as saying, You ever wonder if science has said that evolution is true. And you ever wonder if we came from apes, why are there still apes? Think about it.
Oh, I'm not even going to
think about it.
Look, not even creation scientists posit those sorts of questions, right? So, yeah, this is well, I guess that's an indication of why Herschel is not out on the campaign trail a lot more and dodging debates and these sorts of things because of things like that.
Well, there's another comment he made this week related to NATO, and the AJC had this, and here's part of the quote. What's going on in Ukraine is terrible, and NATO have to get. I'm not sure why they're not getting involved. You let somebody threaten you. Putin is threatening you. If you don't get involved, this. I'm literally reading the quote here. This is not me in choppy language. He's not as powerful as they think he is. He's not as powerful as they think he is, or he wouldn't be doing what he's doing right now. So we should use our strength. I think if I was Biden, which I'm not because I'm younger, I would really pressure NATO to get involved.
Listen, can I reiterate my reticence about celebrity candidates?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just so over celebrity. Look,
celebrity candidates that are picked by Donald Trump too.
I don't care if they're picked by Donald Trump or not. The zeitgeist of the celebrity candidate needs to come to an end. This time period of we are in love with people who, because they're celebrities, and therefore we want our celebrities to be our political leaders. Look, I know you guys don't like the career quote unquote politician, but everybody after one term is a career politician. Every single person.
Wait,
so,
were you guys career politicians?
For a brief time.
From my second to fourth term, yes. According to some retired colonel that lives on the other side of the 21st House District, yes. So, listen. Can we just get some serious-minded people, please? They may not be a household name. They may not have won a Heisman Trophy. They may not have won a Golden Globe. They may not have won an Emmy. They may not have won an Oscar. That does not disqualify them. That actually probably makes them more qualified to be in that office than the guy with the Heisman Trophy. Can we just take a serious time out? If you're thinking about voting for Herschel, do yourself a favor and the rest of us a favor, and just some research in these other guys that are running, because you might find not only are they qualified, you might actually like them better.
Real fast, Buzz, before you weigh in here, I do want to note that NATO has been extraordinarily together during this whole conflict.
Yeah, they really have.
Even some of the countries who hadn't met their defense spending commitments are doing so. So Buzz, I'll let you wrap up.
Yeah, sorry, I'm moving around because my computer's about to die, and I'm out of the range of the cord. The cord's too short, so excuse me. But yeah, no, I was just going to say that I mean, there have been football players who have transitioned to success in politics. I'm thinking of J.C. Watts in Oklahoma. Steve Largent. So I think, Scott, I mean, I understand your point, Scott. But it's not necessarily a celebrity. It's because there are many athletes who are brilliant people. And incredibly successful business people.
John Runyon, Jim Bunning, Burgess Owens.
But I take your point, Scott, that celebrity's not a great thing. That we shouldn't vote for. The bottom line is we shouldn't vote for Herschel because he won the Heisman Trophy and played football.
But that's why they are. That's why they are. There's you ask the average Herschel voter, why are you voting for Herschel Walker? Because he's my guy.
Yeah.
That's the only thing they can articulate. He's my guy. Yeah. I love him. Why do you love him? What policy has he articulated that you support? Well, he's going to win, so you need to get on board.
There's no doubt about that. But yeah, no, and that's why that's the challenge Herschel faces. Is he's got to convince guys like me. He's got to prove that he's more than just a football player. Others have done that, but
he's not doing that though.
He's not doing that.
The only thing he's showing me is that he won a Heisman Trophy one time.
Yeah, and then that he'll get steamrolled in the fall if he's the nominee.
Right now, his candidacy, his imminent nomination is terrifying the pants off me. And I've said it multiple times on this podcast and in other places, he has a chance to win my vote. Right now, based upon the way he has handled himself publicly and these comments that he's making, he's scaring me to death. He's scaring me to death. He's making it seem like...
that's the question is how many people are feeling like that? And is his support, a mile wide and an inch deep? That's a real question. And then who is, but these other candidates, I mean, Gary Black has raised some money. These other candidates, just attacking Herschel is not enough. What is Gary going to do? And he's got to eventually communicate to the people of Georgia what he wants to do as Senate. I know it's on his website, etc. But you've got to make the case to people that you're the better candidate.
And it has to be more than I'm going to stand up to the radical left. Yeah, and it has to. I want to know real policy positions. And at least,
guess what? You might be in the majority,
right?
And so what are you going to do if you're in the majority, and then 2 years from now there's a Republican president, and you've got a chance to get stuff done? What are you going to do?
When they come for you.
So we got to move on here because we got a couple more things on the agenda, and the next couple topics. I know we touched on Ukraine with Herschel Walker and NATO, but these next couple topics are bringing it a little bit more in depth on the topic and even more head scratching. So she who must not be named posted. Let me set the stage a little bit before I do that. Ukraine has been under attack for almost a month at this point. I think we're in week 4, if I recall correctly, and has been holding its own by all accounts. Watching CNN today, or I should say listening to CNN today, the Russian advance is largely stalled. However, bombs are still being sent around the country. They've even started going out towards the western part of the country in Lviv, about 15, 20 miles from the Polish border. Mm-hmm. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has stayed in Kiev and is even going out to the street every day, taking videos, posting them on social media. He's talked to world leaders, to members of Congress, and members of a joint appearance before the U.S. Congress. Right. He spoke yesterday, Wednesday. He spoke to the German Bundestag today, and he spoke to members of Congress yesterday. I don't know if anybody had a chance, if either of you had a chance to watch his address, but it was incredibly. Most of it was spoken in I believe Ukrainian.
Yes.
But the Ukrainian and Russian language are so similar to the untrained ear; it sounds the same. So I know he's native. He's a native Russian speaker, if I recall correctly. But but in the last 10 minutes, or excuse me, the last few minutes of his speech, he spoke in English and gave a direct address or direct comments to President Joe Biden. Got a standing ovation. Members of Congress have passed legislation just last week to give $14.6 billion to Ukraine, half of that humanitarian, half of that military aid. I have seen Congress come together in ways we have not seen in a very long time over this one issue. That said, there are unfortunately some members of Congress who are not just opposing that aid and packing that bill into an omnibus spending bill that you don't like. I can understand a no vote. What I can't understand is why you would repeat Kremlin talking points on a Facebook Live. Which is exactly what the QAnon congresswoman from Georgia's 14th congressional district did. And those types of comments are becoming more pervasive. You have the 25-year-old child who represents part of North Carolina, who called Zelensky a thug. I say all this to say this: Ukraine is not a perfect government. The Ukrainian government is not a perfect government. There is
neither is ours.
Neither is ours. There is corruption. Corruption is more pervasive there than it is here. There is no First Amendment there as there is here. There are a lot of things that we take for granted in American culture and American civics and in our Constitution that they don't have in other parts of the world, including Ukraine. That said, Vladimir Putin is a dictator, as he is a war criminal, in case for those of you who haven't been watching the video, and to push the blatant lies, mistruths, and propaganda coming out of Russia. It's just unbecoming of a sitting member of Congress.
Why are they just being contrarian, Jason? Are they just being contrarian? Do they believe this stuff? No, or are they just trying to they sense that there's unity between Republicans and Democrats on this issue, and therefore they have to be the alternative? Are they pandering to some faction of whoever? What is their end game? What is the goal?
Go ahead.
Well, I heard a podcast from I forget his name, but he was a scholar at AEI who's an expert in what I guess what you used to call Kremlinology. But he's been a long-time observer of Russia and of a lot of things in the political scene. And the way he described it, I thought was very interesting, and why I think some on the right are fascinated with Putin. If you're a nationalist, which Putin, among other things, is a nationalist, then you don't observe borders, which is kind of weird for the Trump crowd because, they're so hung up on they talk about borders a lot. But you're trying to protect a cultural thing, which is what Putin is trying to do. Putin is making this claim that Ukraine is not a real country, that they're Russians, and I'm going in there to protect the Russians from the Nazis, et cetera, and all this bizarre stuff. It's nationalism, trying to protect Russian culture. And that is a very strong element of the Trumpist right these days, this nationalist thought. Tucker Carlson, that's kind of the vein that he's in. I would put Marjorie Taylor Greene in that as well, that we've got to protect American culture as defined by her and people like her. So there's been this fascination with Viktor Orban in Hungary, with Putin in Russia, that he's out there protecting Christianity and this nationalism. But if we're going to take that to its logical end, then guess what? The United States needs to give up large chunks of Texas, of the Southwest, where Hispanic population of Mexican descent is very strong, Southern California. Then we need to give that back to them and ignore those borders. So it's all very convoluted and weird. But I think as he explained this, just kind of helped me understand where these people coming from. I completely disagree with it. I think it's ludicrous. In no way should we look at Vladimir Putin and anything that Putin is doing with any sort of positive light. As you described, Jason, he's a dictator and a thug. There is no free press. There is no free religion, freedom to worship. There is no free economy. It's a corrupt economy. All of this stuff that Putin has done. The education system, people complain about CRT and stuff. Good Lord, what's going on in the education system in Russia is crazy. Yeah. So that nobody should, and you're right, Jason, it is unbecoming of a member of Congress to say these things, especially at a time when, if things don't go well, we might have to put troops over there to defend, maybe not Ukraine, but Poland, Finland, any of these other ones that Russia has their eyes on.
Well, Finland's not a NATO member, but the Baltic states certainly are.
Estonia,
Poland's Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, they're all in Poland. They're all members of NATO. But let me read one specific quote from her. If we truly care about suffering and death on our television screens, we cannot fund more of it by sending money and weaponry to Ukraine to fight a war they cannot possibly win. The only effective more arms and more money from America will be to prolong the war or magnify human suffering. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be responsible for creating even more refugees and orphans in an already traumatized and dysfunctional world. And she later said, it's not our responsibility to give Zelensky and the Ukrainian people false hope about a war they cannot win.
Well, imagine if we had taken that. Imagine if we had taken that tactic and said, well, we cannot get involved in Europe because in World War II because it's impossible to win.
Don't use Nazis, Buzz.
No, not Nazis. I'm not Nazis. I'm saying defending our allies. What if we had said that's not the point I'm making, Scott. The point I'm making is
we did do that for a long time. I mean, if you want to make the point that in World War II, we waited and we waited,
right,
and we
were wrong,
and we waited, and we waited, and millions of people died while we waited to get involved because we didn't want to be involved. And it was not in our interest to be uninvolved.
It wasn't just, I mean, let's also be clear here that when there was a group of Jews from Europe who were seeking refuge in the United States pre our involvement in the war, we turned them away.
Yeah.
And this is go ahead, Scott.
It just feels to Buzz's point, there's a certain feeling about this. If you are familiar with history, it seems familiar now.
Yeah.
And that is what is scary.
Yeah.
This feels, if you're a student of American history, world history, this time period that we are entering into feels eerily familiar.
Yep.
Even if we didn't live through it, it feels familiar.
Yep. Unfortunately, the love of Russian propaganda has not ended with she who must not be named. Apparently, Georgia Republican Party Chairman David Shafer made some also disgusting comments related to Ukraine and Russia. Scott, you blogged about this. Why don't you give us a rundown?
Not only did I blog about it, but I asked. I think among the first. I saw the tweet over the weekend, and the tweet was a retweet of the Russian mission to the United Nations. So the chairman of the Georgia Republican Party was not wise enough to not press send, retweeting the Russian mission, like the Russians at the UN. He's retweeting them. And he was retweeting a vote, a roll call vote about a resolution condemning Nazism and racism throughout the world. And every year since 2005, when George W. Bush has been president, or not every year, but every time this resolution has come up, because it hasn't come up every single year, but every president has had a chance since George W. Bush, including Donald Trump, to vote no on this resolution because of its implications of violating freedom of speech. And the latest time it came up was this past December. And the only two countries in the world to vote no were Ukraine and the United States. There are a whole bunch of European countries who abstained from voting, they just didn't take a stance on that particular resolution. And Shafer's take was, well, you guys fell into a trap. And I couldn't believe, and he quotes the document that says, look, we stand for freedom of speech, even when it's ugly, even when it's the freedom to associate, even when that's ugly, including for Nazis to associate with one another. And so he was like, he quotes that and he's like, wow, like that's terrible. And look, Joe Biden's government is okay with Nazis. And that's what he's trying to say.
Right.
And it was a ham-fisted attempt at tying the Biden administration to Nazis. But I was among the first to say, what? And I quote tweeted him, why is the chairman of my party repeating Russian propaganda? And then Bluestein picked up on it, and he reaches out and he has a conversation with Shafer. I talked to Greg. Greg let me know what was really said. It was amazing. Fireworks, blah, blah, blah. And bottom line, though, is we have somebody who fell into a trap. He was sent some talking points, probably from a Russian bot saying, you should talk about this. And he read it and he didn't do the research. He was lazy and he pressed send. And he became part of the Russian propaganda machine. He literally joined the Russian propaganda machine the moment he pressed send. And he has refused to delete the tweet. And that's really all he should do. I mean, even if he doesn't want to apologize, he doesn't want to say I was wrong, just delete the damn tweet. Don't let Russians use this against people in their war against truth. You have given them a weapon in their war against truth, David Shafer. Just delete the tweet, man. Delete the tweet. Yeah. We'll all move on, and it'll be okay.
The tweet I should note is still up. And our friend Jason Shepard, he's a member of the state committee of the Georgia Republican Party, he said he tweeted this out on March 13th. He would be submitting a censure resolution against Chairman Shafer for spreading Russian propaganda and aiding an enemy of the United States, which I definitely think he's guilty on the first charge. Aiding an enemy of the United States seems a little.
Yeah. He didn't take up arms against us.
Yeah, I would say that maybe pushes it a little too far. But Scott is absolutely right, and it is a shame to see what a former savvy lawmaker like David Shafer has become in all of this.
One of the lobbyists.
So I used to have a lot of respect for David, but not.
Well,
not so much anymore.
Buzz and I have worked with him on issues. We've worked against him on some issues, but we worked with him on some issues when we were all in the legislature together. But I had a lobbyist come up to me and thank me for calling him out. She told me, I don't know who that guy is anymore. And I said, yeah, I felt like I used to know him too, but I don't know him anymore. I don't know this David Shafer. I don't know who this person is. He's not the same guy that I served with in the legislature.
Yeah, I swear to God, there's a trigger in your head. Once you turn a certain age, you turn into your parents and you start talking about insane, crazy conspiracy theories, and you believe everything you hear on Breitbart or read on Breitbart. But that's neither here nor there. So before we go into our last couple topics, I do, by the way, Scott, you did miss a couple topics. I have added a couple topics to should say I've added one topic and I have one more thing to say before we go for the night. Bad week for Atlanta Braves fans. Freddie Freeman.
Was it though? Was it?
Well, we can discuss.
Maybe emotional week for Braves fans. How about that?
The Atlanta Braves traded for Matt Olson, who is a slugging first baseman, slugging first baseman, formerly with the Oakland A's.
Of Parkview High School.
Oh yeah, he's a native Georgian, and that effectively meant that the Freddie Freeman era is over, and the Braves subsequently re-signed Matt Olson to an 8-year deal. He'll average about $21 million a year playing for the Braves. Freddie Freeman, as of late last night, early this morning, is a Los Angeles Dodger. So
6 years. I forget the exact number.
162 million.
162. Yeah.
Yeah, and he wanted those 6 years. I mean, that was the reason ultimately the Braves didn't re-sign him, because he wanted 6 years, not 5, what the Braves were giving him or offering him, and he found it with a big market team out in California. Of course, he's gonna be paying a substantial tax rate out in California.
Yeah, he's gonna end up losing money.
He mostly lives out there, though. Yeah, it's where he grew up. He's a
Buzz. We lost you. We can't hear you.
Yeah. So I'll fill the dead air. Basically, he's going to lose money on that 6 year. The difference in tax rate is over 13 in California, and it is going to be 5.25 here when the governor signs the latest tax cut into law. So 5.25. The current rate, he was going to be paying additional $1.5 million per taxes per year. He wanted $27 million from the Braves for 6 years, and they were offering 140 over 5.
140 for 5. Yep.
Yeah. And so
you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can. So he's going to end up losing money, is the bottom line. The cost of living is more expensive. His tax rate's going to be higher. He's going to get raped at the tax day. So I think what he was trying to do is he was trying to leverage the Braves, or he was trying to create a betting war between the Dodgers and the Braves. And that's just probably something that he probably calculated in his head. I could go home to Southern California and play for the Dodgers anyway, if worse comes to worse. And Alex Anthopoulos probably just like, you know what?
Well,
there's a guy in Oakland, and I can go grab him for.
Yeah. I mean, I think you had a couple of things going on. Alex Anthopoulos has done an unbelievable job with this team, with the limitations placed upon him by Liberty Media, maybe the worst ownership group in the world.
Bob Castellini, buddy, get in line.
And then, so then you had that. So he can't get into a bidding war with the Dodgers. He just can't. If that's what it comes down to, he's going to lose. So at the same time, there were a lot of teams interested in Matt Olson. And, what are you going to do? Statistically, pretty close to Freddie's numbers, younger, hometown guy from Atlanta. So I think
$7 million a year cheaper.
You're right. At some point, Anthopoulos had to say, if I don't grab him now, the Yankees are going to grab Olson, and then I'm going to lose to the Dodgers with Freddie Freeman, and who's going to be my first baseman? How am I going to compete? And he had to. It was a pretty emotional. If you saw the clip of him the day it happened, the day the trade went down, he was saying, "This is the hardest decision I've had to make," and I don't doubt that was true. Freddie was more than just the statistics that you see with baseball loves statistics. Freddie was more than that. He was the clubhouse leader. He was the face of his franchise. And that's why it's emotional, because that's leaving too, not just Freddie Freeman, the MVP, the guy who hits all those home runs.
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt. There's no doubt that Olson, he can hit 39 home runs, 111 RBIs last year.
Pretty good defensive first baseman,
yeah,
too.
He's a 2 or 3 time two-time Gold Glove winner. Finished 8th in MVP balloting in the American League last year. But the thing is, does he have the leadership qualities that Freddie Freeman had?
Somebody's going to have to step up and fill that role in that clubhouse.
Right.
I bet it's Acuna.
It could be, but Acuna's still young, and Olson, he's going to be 28 here in I think a week. But he's still young too, and Freeman largely filled that leadership role by that same age.
Yeah, but only because of his age, right? But there's more to leadership skills than age, and Acuna is definitely taking on as he does get a little bit older. I see him more as a field general type, moving into his mid-20s for sure.
Sure,
could be. Ronald
could be Tyler Matzik for all we know.
Yeah, right, but you want an everyday player to be that person. I mean,
I'm kidding.
Okay. Just saying. But farewell, Freddie. Peace out.
Yeah.
Thanks for the 10, 11, 12 great years he played in Atlanta, and wish you the best of luck as ever when you're playing against us.
Probably see him. We'll probably see him in October.
Yeah.
The Braves and the Dodgers clashing again.
That's going to suck.
All right, I have one more topic for this evening, and it's a surprise topic, but I am going to say something nice about Marco Rubio.
Whoa.
Oh, I know where this is going.
So earlier this week, by surprise, the Senate passed legislation to make daylight saving time permanent. So, no more springing forward and falling back.
And Wes Cantrell started doing the jig.
It passed by unanimous consent, which basically means, for those of you who don't know, most legislative action that happens in the Senate is actually not done through floor votes and things like that. It actually is done by unanimous consent. A senator will go down, ask unanimous consent to pass a bill. They'll do third reading and pass the bill. And if no senator objects, the bill's passed. Kudos to Marco Rubio. I hate daylight saving. I mean, I like daylight savings time. I want to keep it like all year round. I would like for there to still be daylight outside at 5:00 in the evening in December, which is ultimately what this bill would do. And for once in my political career, I'm going to say, good job, Marco Rubio.
All right. Well, I'm glad this podcast is recorded so I can replay that.
Yeah.
Just remember the good time that finally Jason says something nice about Marco Rubio.
This is one reason why we need you to subscribe to Patreon, because this would have been the
premium content.
No, listen to me, guys. Don't interrupt this. This is going to be golden. I promise. Okay. Because we could actually use some of that money to have graphics of pigs flying across the screen as Jason's talking about nice things of Marco Rubio.
And we can Photoshop Jason and Marco Rubio into a picture in a warm embrace.
Or mounted on flying pigs, because I would never have thought that Jason Pye would ever say anything nice.
Flying off to provide the world freedom.
Oh my gosh. I really
from the tyranny of darkness.
Really, really, really don't like you guys right now. But notice I did not say hate.
Could I add one more topic real quick?
Yeah, make it fast.
All right. So I think we have to, as we are recording this, the Falcons are maybe saying goodbye to another Atlanta sports icon, and Matt Ryan, and they're awaiting word from Deshaun Watson, another local product, who went to Clemson, and UGA. Mike Bobo allegedly said that he wasn't good enough to play quarterback at UGA. He went off and won a national championship at Clemson. And I'm sure that doesn't seem like Georgia fans really like Mike Bobo all that much anyway.
Well,
but
he's back with the team, so there's that.
But I mean, there's a possibility that Deshaun Watson comes and is the quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons, and Matt Ryan's tenure is over too. It's not as momentous as, not as emotional, I don't think, as Freddie Freeman, but it's another Atlanta sports icon who might be on his way out.
This is like when Dale Murphy got traded in 1989. 1990. I was like,
Tom Glavine went to the Mets. Oh,
was it 89 or 90? I think it was 89. Yeah.
Tom Glavine went to the Mets as a free agent. That was his choice. That makes it worse.
Yeah, Dale Murphy was traded. Well, then Freddie Freeman went to the Dodgers as a free agent, but at least he's not going to the Mets.
Yeah. Right.
Or the Yankees.
Yes.
Finally, the last thing I want to say, and this is just a point that was recently emphasized to me that we should be making on this podcast. The views expressed on the Peach Pundit podcast are our personal opinions and do not reflect the opinions of those with whom we may have professional affiliation. So please keep that in mind. I'm not speaking for my employer. Buzz and Scott are not speaking for their employers. We're speaking for ourselves. This is for us to have fun. We may say something that's going to piss you off, but this is just represents our own opinions. So with that, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you're listening, we'll see you next week here on the Peach Pundit podcast. And make sure you subscribe to our Patreon, patreon.com/peachpundit. Peace out. Have a good one.
Later, guys.